Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to dive straight into a massive disconnect happening in enterprise AI right now. Look, we hear about artificial intelligence constantly, right? It's completely dominating boardrooms, headlines, and strategic plans everywhere you look. But beneath the surface of all that hype, there's a quiet crisis unfolding in the corporate world. Today, we're going to unpack exactly why the vast majority of these highly funded, highly anticipated AI projects are just hitting a brick wall. And more importantly, we're going to lay out the playbook for the successful minority that are actually getting it right. To really set the stage for this problem, let's just look at the sheer scale of the scramble happening across the corporate landscape. A staggering 78% of companies are currently rushing to adopt enterprise AI. That's practically 8 out of every 10 organizations moving at a breakneck pace because, frankly, they feel the intense pressure of the digital age. Nobody wants to be left in the dust. The capital is flowing freely, and these initiatives are launching everywhere. But here is the brutal reality. 80% of those projects completely fail to deliver any measurable business value. Just think about the sheer scale of that waste for a second. 8 out of 10 of these massive, highly anticipated technology rollouts do absolutely nothing to move the needle on revenue. They don't cut costs, and they don't improve efficiency in any quantifiable way. All that initial excitement, it essentially evaporates when it comes time to show actual results on a balance sheet. And honestly, it gets worse. MIT research shows that 95% of organizations are trapped in what's known as pilot purgatory. Now, pilot purgatory is exactly what it sounds like. It means companies are burning billions, literally billions, of dollars on slick proofs of concept that look absolutely incredible in a controlled environment, but they never actually reach full production. They just get stuck in this endless loop of testing and tweaking, draining resources without ever seeing the light of day on the factory floor or in the hands of actual employees. So let's jump into section 1, the AI pilot purgatory, and exactly why these well-funded projects just stall out. Which brings us to section 2, not a technology problem, because the truth is the algorithms are ready. You know, it's so easy to just blame the software, or say the tools just aren't quite there yet. But modern AI models are incredibly mature and hyper-capable. The foundational infrastructure we have access to today is more powerful than anything we could have even imagined a decade ago. The tech works. So the crucial point we really need to grasp here is that this failure to launch is actually a leadership, structural, and alignment failure. The breakdown isn't happening in the code. It's happening in the boardroom, in the management structures, and in the way teams are communicating, or, well, failing to communicate, about what these tools are actually supposed to achieve in the real world. Let's move to section 3. 4 hidden friction points, and why you really need to look past the hype. If you're evaluating an AI roadmap right now, the very first friction point you're going to hit is the ambition versus reality gap. When you see a sleek demo, you're looking at the ambition. Demos run on perfect, clean, highly curated data. They're literally designed to look flawless. But reality is what happens when you try to plug that same AI into production and it slams directly into messy, unstructured legacy systems. It's like trying to run a Formula One car on a dirt road full of potholes. The environment simply doesn't support the machine. In fact, the data backs this up dramatically. Gartner warns that 60% of AI projects lacking AI-ready data will be completely abandoned. That is a massive mortality rate based on data quality alone. And this is particularly alarming when you consider that 63% of organizations currently lack proper data governance. If your data house isn't in order, your AI project is doomed before the very first line of code is even deployed. Now, friction point 2 is a big one. Workflow redesign is almost entirely ignored. We tend to get completely obsessed with the math, but algorithms are just 10% of AI's actual value. Another 20% is the infrastructure, but a massive 70% depends entirely on redesigned workflows, new operational processes, and human adoption. If you drop a brilliant AI into a broken workflow or hand it to employees who either don't know how or just don't want to use it, you're getting absolutely zero value out of it. And that leads right into our third friction point, fragmented funding. McKinsey notes that organizational resistance is the #1 barrier to success. People simply resist change. It's human nature. Yet, despite knowing this, companies typically throw a meager 5% of their AI budgets at change management. They spend all the money on the tech and almost nothing on the people. Successful leaders, however, completely invert this model. They invest at least 20% of their budget in workforce adoption to ensure the technology actually gets integrated into the daily routine. The fourth and final hidden trap: unclear success criteria. A staggering 73% of failed projects launch with zero agreed-upon metrics for what success even looks like. Just let that sink in for a second. Teams are literally launching multi-million-dollar initiatives without actually defining the finish line. Without explicit metrics, these projects inevitably drift. They turn into costly, open-ended explorations where nobody actually knows if the AI is doing its job because nobody bothered to define what the job was in the first place. Okay, Section 4, Bridging the AI Canyon. Let's talk about how you can actively join that successful 20%. So we've identified the traps. We know exactly why the 80% are failing. But how do organizations restructure to extract real business value? Well, first and foremost, C-suite leaders have got to fundamentally shift their mindset. You have to stop treating AI like a fun, novel tech experiment and start treating it as a rigorous, measurable business discipline. It requires the exact same level of scrutiny, ROI calculation, and operational planning as a major merger or building a new factory. It's a core business strategy, not just a neat side project for the IT department. To execute on this, you absolutely must enforce a phased framework. We like to call this the crawl, walk, run approach. You don't try to automate your entire global supply chain on day one. You start small, you crawl. You build internal trust with small, verifiable wins. This lets you catch those weird edge cases and the data anomalies early, long before they have the chance to snowball and derail your entire enterprise-wide initiative. Structurally, leadership also has to mandate formal pilot charters. This means before any proof of concept even begins, there must be a pre-committed scale or stop decision matrix. If the pilot hits its predetermined metrics, you scale it. If it misses them, you stop it. It's that simple. This entirely eliminates the really dangerous trap of post-hoc justifications. Where project leaders just invent new reasons to keep funding a failing project solely because they've already spent money on it. You also need to aggressively close the alignment gap at the very top of your organization. There's a huge wake-up call happening right now. 74% of CEOs are highly optimistic about the organization's readiness for generative AI. But among their executive teams, the actual people tasked with implementing it, only 29% agree that they're ready. That is a massive disconnect in expectations versus operational reality, and it has to be resolved before you spend another dime. AI strategy expert John Byron Hanby IV sums this up perfectly in the AI Strategy Blueprint. Moving to production requires disciplined execution and board-level accountability. He hits the nail right on the head there. It means leadership must absolutely stop funding magic demos that look cool in a controlled environment and instead commit to the hard, unglamorous work required to build the real governance, the clean data pipelines, and the redesigned workflows that actually unlock tangible value. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a really critical question to take straight back to your own boardroom. How is your organization actively restructuring its AI initiatives today to avoid getting trapped in pilot purgatory? Are you setting the right metrics, fixing your messy data, and actually focusing on your people? Because the technology is absolutely ready. The real question is, are you? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and keep asking the hard questions.